Okay, it's that time of the week. Let's get it. Indeed. Man talk, man talk, man talk, man talk, man talk central. That's what we're doing here. Four dudes out of the mud, now we're ruling here. We give it to you, deliver like Amazon. You're listening to Kings and Champions. No matter what we're talking about, we're gonna give it to you straight, man, no doubt. No doubt. Hey yo, we on our way to greatness. God's got our back, so chill and relax. This is Man Talk Central. Welcome back to another episode of Man Talk Central. Let's get it.
All right, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Man Talk Central, where experience meets perspectives and nothing is off limits. No filters, no fluffs, just raw, uncut conversation. And oh, by the way, I am coming to you live from the prison near me. I am CB40 today. Before we get into it, let's make sure everybody taps in with us, like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can also reach us by email. So without further ado, let me introduce to some and present to others. Some people call him the Dark Wing Commander. DJ Eddie T, what's going on, brother?
I'm just trying to shed some light on this situation. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We missed y'all. We've been away for a little bit, but hey, we're back up and ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, and no, we don't have a special guest, Mojo Brooks, but however, we do have his cousin. What's up, Thunder Dan?
I see you got jokes, huh? Good morning, everybody out there. It's good to be back. Sorry about technical difficulties.
Gotcha. And you know, it's not the Nutty Professor, but he's damn sure Colonel Esquire. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, gang. Looking forward to getting back into it after the long break. Let's go.
And I'm your host, RB3. Today we got a couple topics to talk to you about. The first topic, as men, what are some of our daily struggles that we face? And secondly, a little fun little piece, we'll talk about vacations. Do you prefer mountains? Do you prefer the beaches? So with that, let's talk about some of the daily struggles of men. Now, I did a little research, right? And, I think it's a, 10, 15 good topics we could talk upon. But I will ask each of you as we go through this, talk about some of the things that you personally probably struggle with, right? Like, the big topic is always finances. The second topic is always about marriages, relationships, and now in this new age, it's identities, because you have so many men that want to be women or don't know what they want to be, right? Yeah, I decided to put that one in there. But but there's a lot of things that we struggle with, whether it's careers, right? Whether it's like, am I making the right decision for my family, relocating, things of that nature. Shoulders are broad. As a man, our shoulders are very broad, and we carry a lot of responsibilities. So, with that, I'm gonna start with you, Thunder Dan. What are your thoughts, brother?
To be honest with you, I think one of the biggest things is just trying to make sure that you're steering your family in the right direction so that it stays positive, and being the pillar of the family to make sure that everybody around you grows in a positive way and a productive way for society. I think that's a thing that weighs heavy on most men on their shoulders. You definitely don't want to let your family down. You got to look yourself in the mirror, and it's hard to look yourself in the mirror when you're going through a lot of adversities through life, and you feel like the world's done kicked you when you're down. I think that's a struggle in itself when it becomes being a man. Um, you definitely want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and steer your family in the right direction. And I think that's one of the biggest things that most men out there struggle with, other than obviously the obvious finances and marriage. So those are just given. Every man is going to think about their finances and think about their marriage and think about their family and their kids, but you want to steer them in the right direction.
Great points. DJ Eddie T.
Yes, sir. I would say one of my biggest struggles is making sure that I lead my boys in the correct direction. There are so many, I won't say my boys, my men, my young men. There are so many influences out there that could pull them in different directions. And when they're in under your roof, you can kind of guide things just a little better. But when they're away from, I guess, you know, away from your city, because I have, two in college and they're, 60, 70, 80 miles away. And yes, I can still get to them if needed, but it's more of a daily thing that they face. So the struggles that I have, it's more of I guess, the protection of them, making sure that they are making the correct decisions on a daily basis. Trying to help them with finances, because I'm the first to admit I wasn't the greatest with finances coming up, and and as I've gotten older, I've gotten better, but I try to lead them in the way to where they don't make the mistakes that I made. As far as, I guess, your career, you always want to grow. That's another struggle that I think not just myself, but men in general deal with. They want to make sure that they have done what they have been assigned to do. Um, every job has goals. So, you struggle with making sure that you achieve those goals. Me taking a new position, that's one of the things that I'm faced with now. I hadn't been literally put out there yet, but after, next month, I get to put that, I guess, get under that goal umbrella to where certain numbers have to be met. And which I don't have a problem with meeting goals of that nature, but that's going to be a struggle when you have a new territory, you're under new management, they're just looking at, different metrics. So, and then also being the greatest husband that you can be. This is my second marriage. So I want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to make sure that this marriage works out the way that it should work out. So there are a number of things that, we as men deal with. And I would say that those are my top three that I deal with for the most part.
Outstanding. Thanks for sharing. Colonel Esquire.
Yes, sir, gentlemen. I think a lot of it for me boils down to, realizing that, over time that men have responsibilities, whether you want to accept them or not. Like, the innate responsibilities you get being a man, or, you're accountable for, just by design, you have to understand that and be willing to accept that. I mean, just for an example, as far as like, you're the leader of your household, you have to not only be a leader, but you have to be, a counselor, manager, a big thing for me is when my daughter especially wants to rant and rave and go about her day. In my mind, there's like 5, 6, 7 different areas I can provide solutions, but she just wants to crash out and have me listen to her vent about her day. And as a man, I'm just not wired like that. I don't have time to sit down and hear all of that, but I know it's different because of her emotional makeup or whatever. Or, supporting your wife, what to say, when to say, how to say it. And a lot of times, you end up on the wrong end of the stick as far as that, but that's all a part of, being a man, because so, a lot of things you're going to get wrong, which comes to the second part, I think for me, denying myself, being humble, always being willing to adjust according to the situation. Especially an example at work, how many times in our normal routine, if you heard something you didn't like, or somebody said something you didn't like, you'd clap back a certain way, you would respond a certain way. But I found that if you deny yourself and just kind of let things roll out the way they play, I know that a lot of you all know that I like to rely, on my spiritual beliefs. And I've discovered that a lot of times when I just kind of let God handle it, it works out a lot better than when I handle it, because I want to crash out and check people and let them know what time it is and all that. And a lot of times that's not even called for. And a lot of times when you just kind of sit back and let things play out, it kind of works out the way you want it to work out because the reaction that they're expecting from you, you don't give them, and that kind of messes them up even more. So I just think, as far as men in general, we have. Well, I can't speak for y'all, but I know for me, um, our egos. My ego is pretty fragile, and so I've had to learn how to keep that in check because a lot of times I want to say and do things, to protect my ego or to satisfy it, as opposed to just being a leader, charging into the game. There might be some things, a lot of things that are beyond your control, but you just do what you can. So I think the daily struggle with me kind of starts and ends with humility and denying myself the things that I want to say. A lot of times I can't say and should not say, and it's a struggle for me, to kind of keep my mouth closed as far as that, or the things that I want to do. Um, that's not the best option. You know what I'm saying? So it's like being attentive to the situation and keeping yourself in check. I think that for me, that's the biggest daily struggle. And the days that I'm able to, manage that well, everything falls into place. The days where I don't, it seems like, it's like a domino effect. One thing leads to another.
Great point. You all made valid points. I would say from a personal standpoint is when you talk about things we should speak on and not speak on, my mouth is always open. I've always got a comment for something, right? Whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. But you have to understand, as we develop and grow as men, there's times when you speak and times when you don't speak, right? So understanding, where to put your 2 cents in and where not to. Talk about financial pressures. I can remember, hell, we all grew up on making $3.35 an hour, right? Then we join the military, you go to college, right? And you sometimes I think there was a big boom in how much it costs to live, the cost of living between like 1996 and let's say 2002, right? And it's like, oh my God, how am I going to provide for my family? I need to do this or I need to do that to be better. And I know being in the military, salaries don't really change, but you always try to put yourself in a situation for that next grade. And I think sometimes I always put the military ahead of my kids, because my kids, they didn't really care, about how much money I was making. They cared about the time that I was spending with them. So I chose the career move, right? And luckily, well, I ain't gonna say luckily, but it added to some mental constraints and things of that nature, because when they start acting out, things of that nature, and you're living apart, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing, as a father, as a man? What it really is my role, right? Is it really to be the financial winner, to give them what they need and help support them with the things that they're going to need to do, or do I really need to be physically present? So I struggled with that for a long period of time, and I was thankful that my first wife afforded me the opportunity to raise my sons, for them to come and live with me from middle school and high school. And that helped a little bit, but there was that gap, because now there was a separation between me and my sons. There was a little gap that I was trying to figure out, but I'm still in um, that career mode. I'm still trying to make sure I do what I need to do. So as I separate from the military, I'm still postured to make a decent living to support them and whatever else. Um, you talk about the ego being fragile. Oh, yeah, I believe that 99% of the men in the world today have a fragile ego, right? But many won't admit to it. So kudos to you, Colonel Esquire, because of course we always want, I don't like being wrong. Now, I don't mind being wrong because the Jets beat the Cowboys, right? I don't have a problem with that, right? But I don't want to be wrong when it comes to educating my sons on, hey, these are the options that you have. You always want to make sure you have the options, but don't do this just because of that, because that's not long term. So I feel where you're coming from, Eddie T. Always trying to be present and afford the try to give the right guidance, or the right course of actions. And then when you talk about the marriage piece, this is my second marriage as well. And I would tell you, when we was dating, you never realize the difference in dating than when you become married. Right? I thought it was gonna be the same thing, right? But all of a sudden, once I bought that engagement ring, I needed more attention. I need to provide more attention, right? And it's like, oh damn, but I'm still in my career mode, So, but now I'm learning through experiences, trial and error, that everything fluctuates. Everything ebbs and flows, and It's tough out here. Then let's not even talk about being a black man in America, right? Some of the trials and tribulations that we have. And I don't like really always talking about the color of one's skin, but it's relevant. It's relevant. Any alibis out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. My fault. No, I just wanted to make sure that we touched on the protector piece as far as I know. We may have kind of skirted around it, but that's a struggle that I deal with because I'm extremely protective over my wife. I just know that, like, when she tells me stuff about what happens at work, the first thing you want to do is like, because she's very, very unlike me. She doesn't, to me, she doesn't speak up when she needs to speak up. But then she handles things a lot differently than me. Just like, Colonel Esquire stated, he's ready to open his mouth and say something. And the older I've gotten, the more that I have gotten that way. I'm like, if a situation happens, let's talk about it. Let's get on it. Because I know in my past I would let stuff build up, and then when something minor would happen, then that's when you blow up, and it's kind of like that's wrong. So I feel more at peace by saying what I need to say at that moment, and then everything else is just even keel. But as a protector, like, that's one of the things that I struggle with, just to make sure that she's covered, whether it's being spiritually covered or whether it's being physically covered. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But that was another one that popped up in my head about being a protector. That's a struggle that I deal with.
That's a good one. Good one. Colonel Esquire.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up by saying that, I was told, a long time ago, like from a couple people, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can have knowledge, but wisdom is to know how to apply it correctly. And that's kind of the daily struggle, kind of wrapped up into what I was kind of saying before, say at work, for example, I'm learning more and more, the knowledge of what the right answer is, but the wisdom is having to navigate and how to say that and convey it to where you don't get attacked. And that's another thing. My pastor told me, you just got to play the game. The one who says the least amount wins, and the moral of that lesson is there's really no need to argue with everyone. You don't need to get your point across, because if you know the truth, if you know what's right, then why do you need to argue? You're not going to convince anyone, on social media. Now, of course, there are times where you have a discussion and you work things out, but just to get your point across, that's not going to do anything for anybody. So, I just wanted to say that, like knowledge versus wisdom, I think that's, a biggest thing. And for me, I know that I grew up or was taught or raised or whatever, providing for your family is the biggest thing. You got to provide for your family. I don't care what it is, what you do, but at the end of the day, you got to be providing. And so in lieu of that, there's a lot of things that I probably neglected and overlooked as a man that I need to be better at. Because my emphasis was so much on being a provider for the family. You know what I mean? So, I've done a lot of things wrong, but one thing you can't say is that, Colonel Esquire never provided for his family. So there's a lot of things that I've done that I wouldn't have normally done in lieu, to provide. You see what I'm saying? So I think you have to recognize who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. Dan, did you have anything?
Yeah, there's a touch to your point that we're all going to do things wrong, and we always try to do things right, learn from our mistakes, and hopefully we can pass those on to our children. Like I've told my children plenty of times, there's no manual to raising them, but we're doing the best that we can do, me and my wife, to raise our kids and to take them in the right way. But as being the man of the house, and one of the struggles is you're going to make those mistakes, and it's how you adjust to those. In the past, I wasn't very equipped to adjust to them properly. Uh, Over time and growth, you become a different person. You're not the same as you were when you were younger, and you try to instill those on the rest of your family. So this way, when you make those mistakes, you learn from them, you move on, and then they can learn from them too in a productive way. And that was the biggest thing, and it's a hard thing to do, and it is understandably going to attack your ego that you may have made a mistake, and you feel uh, really up. You feel bad that you put them down or you put them in a path that's not where they need to be going. Um, Path can be from A to B, and then you went from A to Z, and then that back to B. So it's just a matter of trying to do the best you can do, and I think that's where I know that's where a lot of my struggles are. Is I try to strive for perfection when it comes to my family instead of having some leeway. Of course, we're going to make mistakes, but it's all about love too. I love the hell out of my family, but I want them to be better than I was, and it is upsetting when they're not that way or when they make a mistake. But they're going to grow up and they got to learn. So you got to have that patience about it, and that's a struggle in itself. When you can see it coming and you know it's coming, but you have to trust that you've raised them the right way and they're going to make the right decisions. That is a big struggle of mine because keeping my mouth shut is what the problem is. Be like, yo, you can't be doing that, and then they ended up doing it. They got to learn for themselves. I figure I raised them the right way, me and my wife, and it's up to them to make the decisions on their own. All you can do is be there for them.
Well, it's funny that you say that, right? Experience is like sometimes the best teacher, right? I can remember back when my oldest son was 16, he was hanging with some cats. And I was like, you know what? Let me try the Scared Straight program, right? So I went down to the local police department. I said, hey, I want you to come talk to my son. I know he's gonna be a little fiery. You know, put the cuffs on him, put him back in the car, lock his ass up. Ironic, it happened, right? So now my son's locked up, and that's only like three cells in this little small town, right? And he calls, I'm not answering the phone. So he reaches out to his mom. So his mom's calling me hysterical. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Say, hey, he got to learn what it feels like to be in that 2x2 cell playing cards all day, eating MREs, from 1943, right? So making a long story short, by that second day on Saturday, now I'm feeling like, oh, I got my oldest son locked up. Damn. I ain't going to see him. Toughen up, Rob. So Sunday I go down to see him. He and that joker, he's like, Dad, I'm sorry. Right. But making a long story short, right? That's not always the best method. But experience is the best teacher for a lot of folks. We can advise. We just hope that whatever decisions they make, it's not a life-ending or life-altering situation that they can't rebound from. When you talk about protecting your wife, right? One thing that, blended families, things of that nature, you're coming into, we're meeting later. It's not like we grew up together. So, you're always constantly learning each other. But as a man, we want to know how and to make sure that we're protecting our wife, our kids, just our family as a whole. I think that's one of the bases why we wanted to start this podcast was so men can openly talk and have like a network or resources or learn how to, talk to their counterparts, right? Because my strength is my network, right? Because as a man, I've my development wasn't because of what I saw my father do or my uncles do. It was from being around guys who were kind of open and kind of shared their stories, or and I was like, oh, okay, that's how you do this. Okay, with that, okay, I need to do this. And I think that's one of the strengths of this podcast is we share personal experiences, but the bottom line is you gotta learn how to reach out to somebody to the left and right. In the military, they talk about 22 people commit suicide every day, right? A lot of that is because they don't have people to talk to. They don't have a platform or someone to, um, just don't have anybody to reach out to. Their support system is kind of, isn't there. So, Ephraim, I believe you had said something about, knowledge and wisdom, right? It's funny because I had a boss who always say, Corporal Barnes, you know a lot, but It don't mean dilly squat if you don't share it. He said, knowledge is only powerful if you share it. And that's what we do with our kids and our family. Any alibis?
I know back in the day I learned, I don't know where it came from, but when we were speaking of the knowledge and the wisdom, it was a phrase that always said, knowledge is king and wisdom is the throne. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. And I don't exactly know where that came from. I was trying to look it up, but that spoke volumes because, I mean, that has some truth to it. So, that was some good stuff right there that we just shared.
You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out, watch out, watch out for the wolves. You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out, watch out, watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves, cause they dressing up like sheep. They sneaky and they subtle when they walk around and creep. They watching when you sleep, and not just when your eyes are closed, looking for a way to knock you down like some dominoes. So stay alert, stay awake, stay vigilant. A real one versus the wolf, know the difference. Pay attention, they gon' study like a test. They get you when you're down, never try you at your best. Always wishing that you fail, never ever for success. Got your life cleaned up, they gon' try to make a mess and fill your life with stress and take your happiness. Their only goal in life, their one and only quest. Smiling in your face, but they wanna take your place. Pretending to be real, but all the while they're fake. A wolf is gonna wolf, cause that's just what they do. If you don't know the wolf is probably you. You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out, watch out, watch out for the wolves. You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out, watch out, watch out for the wolves. You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out, watch out, watch out for the wolves. You better watch out for the wolves. Watch out for the wolves. Watch out.
Yeah. I'm not going to even try to come up with my high-speed segue. We just going right into it. We're going right into it. So many times as men, all we do is we work. We don't take vacations. And then sometimes when we take vacations, the vacations is based upon what our significant other, our wives, want to do or like doing, right? So there's two areas we're going to talk about: vacations in the mountains, vacation at the beaches. Now, some people don't want to go to the beaches because a lot of clapping going on. But all jokes aside, talk to me about some of your, where you prefer the vacation and some of the pros and cons of your vacations. I'll start with you, Colonel Esquire.
Okay, so well, let me preface this. I'm not going to be long, but when I'm a fan of the beach, and maybe I'm a fan of the beach only because that's pretty much where I've been. My wife is pretty much dictating where we go. And I know when we was on the East Coast back, before Spirit Airlines, rest in peace, Spirit Airlines, we had a good run. They would always fly to the Caribbean, and their tickets were pretty, reasonable, like all the island areas and Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean. And so that's pretty much, based on budget, based on availability, nonstop flights, whatever the case is. When we were in New York and DC, we take a lot of flights out to the Caribbean. And so I'm a big fan of Puerto Rico, big fan of Turks and Caicos. But with that being said, I like to relax on the beach. Now, granted, I don't need a tan, so I'm out there with towels and umbrellas and all that. But I'm not trying to be, Congo black, but I'm just trying to be like, what I'm saying, just relaxing. And so I like to, get up, walk / jog on the beach or whatever. I like the beach air. I don't necessarily get in the water too much, but I just like the environment of the beach because we're just resting and relaxing. And again, I'm mentally, I like to plan. I like a routine. I don't like to be surprised. So most of the time when you're going to the beach, you're pretty much not going to do a whole lot. Now, I'm not opposed to going on vacation where one day you're doing this, one day you're going on a tour, one day you're doing that. But I don't necessarily want to be caught up in the whole corporate mess of it. Like if you go on a cruise or you go, to the tourist sites and you got the people with the signs saying, "Hey, come on and come to Gibson Tours" or whatever, and then you're down with a bunch of whole, 30, 40 people. If we're going to do that, we're much more likely to get like somebody local and give them the money because because tourism, wherever you go, most places, tourism is going to be the number one generator of the economy, And yes, of course, if you're giving it to the hotel or you're giving it to the company, it's going to trickle down. But I would love to just give that money directly to that person. And that way they have an immediate impact. And so, yeah, just give it to a local guy. Hey, drive us around, show us around. But, but yeah, I'm definitely more of a beach person. I mean, I guess because I associate the mountains with colder air. I'm not a fan of the colder environment. I associate mountains with hiking, and I like working out, but I don't want to work out on my vacation, so to speak, if that makes sense, like outside of the gym. So maybe I'm just, I definitely know I'm ignorant to that. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of getaway mountainous vacations that you can relax and chill. I just have never been on one. So I'm a fan of the beach only just because for the most part, you're going to lay around. You're not going to do a whole lot. Beach towns are kind of a more relaxed environment. There's not going to be a whole lot of sightseeing. You're just going to kind of relax and recharge your batteries.
Well, first thing I want to point out is I caught COVID on Spirit Airlines. I'm so glad that them jokers can of farts are done. I'm like, Lord Jesus. DJ Eddie T.
Well, first of all, how do you know that you caught COVID on Spirit Airlines? That's what
Okay. Well, you asked, so I got to tell you.
Yeah, tell me, and then I'll
Okay.
come back to my section.
So I bought the $186 ticket, right? 'Cause it's cheap, right? And I had to pay $50 for my bag, right? So I'm sitting next to a young lady, lovely young lady. Had a little baby she was carrying. The baby had to be, I'd say maybe 13 months old, but she was still breastfeeding him. So she sat to my right and she was, but she was breastfeeding. And I don't know if y'all saw that movie Outbreak, but I could see all the COVID come out of my mouth, just sparkling in the air. And I'm inhaling that because I didn't have a doggone mask on. And that happened on Spirit Airlines, Soul Plane. And when I got off the plane, I felt weak. I started drinking water. It didn't happen. I had to Uber home. You asked, so I'm telling you. But anyway, go ahead on DJ AT.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that bit of info with me. And
Yeah.
I pictured it all as you were catching it. So, all right. So anyway, I am when I say mountains, I guess I'm more of a cabin guy. Yes, I've been to plenty beaches. I've been to Florida. I lived in California 8 years. I've done the beach thing, but I think my what's the word I'm looking for? My attraction is just, when I say mountains, I'm more dealing with, like I said, the cabins, the fireplaces, just the lounging, that type part. So, like I've spent, some time in Colorado. And of course, living in California, Lake Tahoe was one of my favorite spots to go to. So, of course, you got the mountains over there. And I've done the ski lodge and Heavenly and all of that stuff. So that to me, I consider that a vacation. And yes, it is more weather related. Now, again, the mountains are beautiful in the spring and in the summer, but it's just something about, like I said, you can go to Lake Tahoe at times and it's just beautiful, just sunny down below, and you look up and there's some snow on the mountain. I mean, it's amazing. I'm constantly pumping Lake Tahoe because, like I said, I've spent a lot of time up there. But beach wise, I've gone to Destin. Yes, it was an amazing, amazing vacation. Just when we got there, just putting our bags down and everything, I opened up the door and just listening to the beach. It was amazing. I just laid across the bed and I'm like, I could just stay here the whole week. I'm fine with that. I don't even have to go down to the sand. I mean, just hearing the breeze and feeling the breeze, or hearing the ocean rather, and feeling the breeze, that was amazing. But it's just something about that crisp air when you're in the mountains. You're gonna, kind of, you're gonna see some wildlife from time to time. I mean, just the crackling of a fire. When you're in the cabin, that's my vision of a vacation. So if I had rathers, that's where I would always go, somewhere in the mountains. I want to go to the Smoky Mountains at some point. Maybe one of you guys have been up that way, and I hear it's extremely beautiful up that way. So that's on my bucket list as well.
Well, some of my fraternity brothers, about like 11 years ago, we put together this Gatlinburg trip, and we would go out there every January. And that was pretty cool, right? But the thing about it is, you get that safety briefing. Don't leave trash outside. Make sure you lock your vehicles. Don't leave your windows down. Because those bears, they look big, but them jokers are kind of nimble. They flexible, and they don't care who you are, right? Which is my issue with the mountains, because I'm like, a lot of these animals, the wildlife you spoke of, DJ Eddie T, they don't see a lot of dark meat, right? And they can sense us when we're coming. And I just think sometimes they just a little too close when there's a lot of dark meat in the area. But Brother Dan, what's your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to do the mountains and the beach. I've been to Colorado, been skiing, and we lived in Hawaii for 4.5 years. And I think I'll take the beach over the mountains. It's nothing like just going out there, relaxing, and let the waves crash a little bit. Let the kids go swim. And yes, kids can swim out there, or they go boogie boarding or go surfing. So for me personally, there's nothing like laying on the beach and just soaking up the sun and enjoying the water. Don't get me wrong, the mountains is great. I had a great time being in the mountains, but that was another issue that I had, was the snakes and the spiders and the wildlife, and you got to watch out for your young ones while they're running around. I'm not about to let them get bit by a timber rattler if I can help it. And don't get me wrong, there are resorts that they try to do their best, but the wildlife will creep in. And the beach does have its issues too, with like man of war, sharks, and things like that. But I think I'd rather prefer the beach. I think it's a little bit safer sometimes and more relaxing.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, you go on vacation, but then you finish, come back, you got to go on vacation again because you done wore yourself out at the vacation. It's like, but I would tell you, like I said, I've been in the mountains. I just love great scenery, right? To your point, DJ T, that fresh air. Because, you don't have a lot of fresh air in the US. You don't have a lot of fresh air, depending where you live at, especially New York. Hint, hint. But anyway, I enjoy seeing the waves. I enjoy seeing kids out there just playing in the ocean and things of that nature. My wife, she's a what they call them, salt for life chick. You know what I'm saying? She could be mad at me, but if I say, hey, I'm gonna take you to the beach. Oh, you're the best thing since sliced bread. She forgot about what it was she was mad at me about, right? She prefers that. But the crazy thing is, and then I always put personal business out there, but this is a crazy one. Her thing is, she doesn't care if it's anybody in the water or if it's a lot of people in the water. Me, I like to have a lot of people in the water, because if a shark comes, I got a good chance to get back on the ship, on the boat. If it's just me out there, I got to do what I got to do. And then you never know. Water's like the biggest body, known to man, and you never know what's really going on up under that water. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll swim a little bit, but then I bring my ass back inland, and I'm good. I've been stung by jellyfish quite a few times. I was like, why is my skin so tight? I didn't see it, I didn't feel it, but I felt the aftermath. Right? I could do without all that. But at the end of the day, if I had to pick one over the other, I really would pick the mountains, but I would have to stay inside. And probably doing, I gotta stay inside, man. I'm not gonna be out there, man. Look here. You're not gonna hear RB3, law-abiding citizen, got chewed up by a mountain lion. Now, if I'm allowed to take my dogs with me, okay, because one of them gonna be sacrificed. Again, I have to be in an environment where I'm not the only one. I see your head shaking. What's up, Dan?
Yo,
And I
he
got
said
my hand
like
raised.
dogs. Come
You know
on, man.
what?
Look,
What? What?
I get it because the mountains is wild, man. Like even moose will hurt you. We had when I was living in Alaska, we had guys out there trying to feed moose, and the moose kick them. You know, guys doing their nature walks and they getting tracked by a bear. I remember going out with a couple of friends of mine. We went to go fishing in the mountain for pike, and there was a bear tracking us the whole way. And you talk about uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable. So yeah, I think I'd rather have the beach. Don't get me wrong, I go hunting, fish, and all that, but I think I'd rather have the beach as far as a vacation.
I got you. Go
Let
ahead,
me
DJ
clarify
NT.
something.
Yeah.
When I say mountains, I'm not talking about Grizzly Adams, cabin, and I'm talking about like multiple cabins around us where there
Okay.
are some other people. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. So
Where
the
there are
odds are good.
paved streets, and stuff like that.
Okay.
That
So the odds are good. We'll make it home. We got a
Oh, yeah,
chance.
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So I was just getting ready to say earlier when I raised my hand, maybe we should, go on a vacation at some point, the eight of us, and,
Yeah.
pick, I guess, a beach and then pick a mountain and then, do that. I think that would be super cool. But again, I just want y'all to know when I'm speaking of mountains, I'm not talking about hunting for your food at night type mountains. I'm talking about down the street is a Papa John's, but you can, but you can, drive back up to your cabin. There's a remote control on the garage, stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's what I'm talking about, and the little dude will bring you firewood and stuff, or you got central heat and air, but you can, still lay on the rug in front of the fireplace. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. I definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
all
went.
about the odds. I'm all
Yeah,
about
he
the odds.
talking about a bear tracking him. No, I ain't talking about. No, no. I said I enjoyed the crisp air and all of that. The ski lodge. No,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about some living on Dutton Ranch up no
Yeah.
junk like that. No, no, forget that.
Mhm.
I like living.
The only problem I would say, another problem with the beaches is sometimes it's a little too noisy. There's a lot of clapping going on. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to sit and chill and relax. But, all the claps sometimes just a little bit much. Correct, Esquire.
And you would, and you would say,
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Let a brother rest on this joke.
Well, there are certain beaches that, advertise certain things. So, I mean, clearly, South Beach is a place that I would not go and expect, family fun entertainment, versus, I haven't been to Destin, but I know when, RB3 and I was out at Anna Maria Island out there in the Tampa area, that was that type of beach is much more family fun oriented. There's certain beaches when we were in Puerto Rico. There are certain beaches that are private. Certain beaches that that don't allow kids or whatever the case is. So yeah, you just got to figure out who you're going with and what you're in the mood for as far as what But I don't and I know it's a different subject, but I'm definitely not a lake person when it comes to the lake versus beach. I'm not gonna get in the water for the most part if I can't really see down in it. And I know that people are nasty, so there's no telling what type of urination and defecation that's going on in the water. So I just prefer to just stay out of it and be in a hot tub. That's just me. And especially in a lake. I don't know what would possess anybody to be in the lake water, but because at least the ocean, there's a salt, there's some sort of purification system. I mean, I'm sure there is with the lake, but I didn't realize that cattle go in the lake and handle their business in the lake and all that kind of stuff. Nah, player, I'm good on all of that. So no lakefront properties for me. Period.
Yeah.
Those, just so you know, from those are ponds that the cows are getting in. Ponds, not lakes, because I doubt very seriously if there are any ranches around a lake. So just know those are ponds. But also, while I have you guys' attention, have any of you been to Broken Bow yet? Down to the, I want to experience that as well, because a lot of people from down this way have always stated that that's an amazing resort. So I want to experience that at some point.
Okay, bro. Cool.
Yeah, Broken
Well,
Bow.
the three of us, well, three out of the four of us are in kind of striking distance of that. I know a coworker of mine. She was on vacation last week, and she went to Broken Bow. But then again, she was like, "Well, the AC didn't work, and this and that." I'm like, "Man, no way in the world." And what'd you do? Why we just dealt with it? Nah, I'm not
Creature of
that
comfort.
type of money. You don't deal with it. You get it fixed, right?
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I mean, sure, we can go to the Sheraton Inn, and that happened. So we just switch rooms. What do you do? But yeah, Broken Bow. There are multiple choices of cabins and all of that stuff. So I guess it all depends on who you
What you
get
like?
it from and all of that. But I think this is something we should check into and maybe put that on the calendar for 27.
Hey, let me know. Let me know. But I will say this when you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
But to your point, Colonel Esquire, there are like you do have some beaches you can go to, like say Myrtle Beach, for instance. There's a wild side of Myrtle Beach, and then there's a family side of Myrtle Beach. You go to Hawaii, you may go out to Waikiki or Honolulu. They got the tourist spots, but then they got Bellows, which is basically private military beach. So I'm not talking about going to the beaches where all the craziness happens and spring break, like Ohio and or Cocoa Beach or something like that. But I'm talking about just the quiet beaches. I'm not a big fan of overpopulated, even overpopulated malls. I like going to the malls where ain't nobody at, But there are places to go like that. Uh, and it's nice because you can actually relax and not have to worry about picking a spot or somebody kicking dirt all up on you and all that other stuff. Now, you do have to worry about the seagulls or the birds flying around trying to steal your food, but that's about it.
I tell anybody, right? Like, throughout life, when you take trips certain places, you get a little bit spoiled, right? And when you go to that one, you find that one that you really like. You want everything to be the same, right? And I have not found a beach in the U.S. that is closely resembles what I've witnessed in Europe or other places. Because to your point, I like seeing to the bottom. I don't want it to be just jet black, right? Because something's down there looking at you, right? And the reality is, we don't move as fast as the amphibious life forms up under that water. But it's just something about the beauty. And when you're in those foreign beaches, there's different types of. In the U.S., we're so you're young, you can't see a woman's breasts or what have you. They're very open in a lot of different places, and it's not like taboo, right? And people there, they respect your position, you respect their position as to what you have to do, and they're not so overcrowded, right? So to your point, Dan, it's nothing like a 10 by 10 beach, and you got 15 by 15 people sitting up in that joke. It's just too much, just too much. People always pee in the ocean, people always pee in lakes and all that good stuff. But I feel where you coming from, Colonel Squire, because it's nothing like just being in one of these stateside things and you see this little thing coming by. You're like, what the hell is that? You're infected. Now you gotta go get a COVID shot. You know what I'm saying? But the good thing about it is it's all about experiences, right? It's all about being able to say, hey, I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, had a great time. I went with my boys and their wife, right? It's all just about experiences, because believe it or not, the people you're with makes the vacation just that much better. The scenery is good, but when you're with great people, oh man. Because when I went to Thailand, I got to give a shout out to the Roberts family. We went to go see the elephants. So there's two tours. If you ever decide to go to Thailand, to Phuket, there's two tours. One, you can swim with the elephants, which I know everybody has heard. And then another one, you can just feed the elephants. Well, we fed the elephants. Why?
Swim with the
Yeah.
elephant?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
And elephants and piss all up in that joke. Ain't nothing but turds and shit in that joke. So don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not being racial. But I'm just saying, people with a darker pigment don't really swim with the elephants. You know what I'm saying? But we fed them jokers. We fed them, but we weren't swimming, with Turd Island. But it's pretty cool. Any alibis?
No, I'm done with elephant swimming. No, we good.
Absolutely. I'm good. I'm checked out.
I didn't know elephants could swim, to be honest with you.
Dude, look here, just Google that. One day when you're bored, you're sitting in traffic, you know what I'm saying? Just say
You shouldn't be
elephant.
on your phone in traffic.
Well, I'm a violator.
Public
Because
service announcement.
Yeah, because I be sitting driving. I'm like, just like this. I'm not
Hey.
moving, So it's two things I can do: either play on my phone while I'm sitting still, or I can take a nap. What would you prefer me to do? I mean,
Well, you own one of those self drive vehicles, correct?
look here, it self drives until it decides to lose connection, and then you're on your own. So I don't even use that option.
Wow. See, that's
Yeah,
something else we should talk about because I had no idea. Because I
yeah.
have literally been next to a guy on I-45 going into Houston, and he was asleep, but that Tesla was rocking on.
Key thing: Tesla. Tesla's different than the other EVs or the other brand of EVs, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think I mentioned it a couple episodes ago. I get jealous when I see those jokers in Tesla. They be like this. Man, I drive right next to them. I be hitting the horn. Hey, if I can't sleep, you can't sleep while driving in Maryland, DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. I'm a hater. I'm a hater. Any alibis? Any alibis? Y'all knew this when y'all met me back in 7th grade. I'm not rap too tight. I'm trying to do better. Pray for me, Colonel Squad, DJ DT, Dan. Pray for me. Pray for your boy.
All of us. That's
Yeah.
it.
But all jokes aside, those are our two comments for today. Hopefully everybody got a little something out of it. Now we can freelance and talk about whatever's on your mind.
Well, I know I'm not going to be swimming with anybody's elephant. I don't even know.
That's funny. Anybody.
That is funny. Yeah.
Whether he's owned or if he or if he's a free agent, you're not going to swim with him.
No. Man Talk Central. That's what we're doing here. 4 dudes out of the mud, never ruling here. We give it to you, deliver like Amazon. You're listening to Kings and Champions.
So with that being said, we'll start with Brother Dan. What comments do you have for our audience, sir?
Thanks to you for everybody who tuned in. I know it's been a while since we put another one out. Hopefully you enjoyed the content, got a good laugh, something that you will enjoy, and share it with your friends, and put some comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and also look at all the platforms. Look for Colonel Esquire single out. Watch The Wolves is what it's called. The Wolves. Check it out. It's great. You'll love it.
Outstanding.
And one last thing, treat everybody how you want to be treated. And hopefully we can all get along.
Gotcha. DJ Eddie T.
Yes, sir. I actually had someone ask us, where have you guys been? Hadn't seen any content. I said, well, we took, a little 2-week break, but we'll be back starting tomorrow morning. So appreciate the people missing us. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Of course, I'm going to say keep God first in your life. If you don't do anything else, keep God first. That's it. But have a great, safe weekend, guys. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. That's it.
Outstanding. And the man, the legend, the myth, Colonel Esquire.
Yes, sir, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone listening. The echo DJ DT's comments. Keep God first in your life. I'm very humbled to have lived this long, to have had the life I've had. Without him, I'm sure I would have been dead or in jail somewhere. It's great that this podcast, I'm able to use this platform and, relive a childhood dream. It's a blessing. But most importantly, appreciate hanging out with you all each and every week, keeping the bond fresh, keeping it intact. And, I'm glad that we're able to, impart knowledge that can be used for people of our age and people, whatever the case is, behind us. And so keep watching. We're going to give you stuff each week. And again, September, October, the project will be out. Untitled right now. We'll come up with a title soon. But other than that, hey, have God order your steps. Thank you.
Outstanding, outstanding. I would just like to state that last couple weeks I had a chance to reset. I was on vacation, and one of the things I missed to miss these three brothers here, engaging in a little banter every now and then. But it's always good, right? And as we was talking about some of the challenges men have, is a lot of times because you don't have a network. So just want to continue to hit home. Open your network, talk to people. You're not alone, and see you next week. So as we close this episode, let's take a moment to honor the loved ones we've lost. Appreciate those who still walk beside us and welcome the new lives that remind us that hope is always being renewed. Remember, our time is not endless. We got more days behind us than ahead of us. So choose to make the ones you have left count. Lead with kindness, act with purpose, and whatever you do, do it with convictions. Make your impact, make it meaningful, and above all, make it yours. We, the four brothers from down under, are saying peace, and a wolf could be you.